I am Petya Rasheva, a student in the Stanford LEAD program. In continuation of the Building Power to Lead course of Professor Jeffrey Peppa and the series of interviews on Path to Power, I am talking today to Vahe Torossian, the Corporate Vice President of Microsoft. Welcome, Vahe.
Hey, Petya, thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity to be with you and take some time to share, part of my experience.
Thank you very much for joining us today. Vahe, you joined Microsoft in 1994 when it was still a small company. And no?
92.
92. 31 years ago. And basically, you helped building Microsoft to become what it is nowadays. Would you please give us a brief overview of your career path? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Petya. And yes, I spent a bit more than 30 years at Microsoft. I left Microsoft actually a few months ago. And I have to say there's been an amazing opportunity, an amazing, numbers of experiences that I went through. It was at the time in 1992 that was still, a very early stage of the software world. People were starting to understand what is software, and that was a team that I met. That was exciting to meet. I felt it was an extension of a campus, and the 30 years have been, flying so fast. I've been blessed to start in France. You recognize my accent, and being given the chance to run multiple operations, from marketing, launching the consumer organization at that time, all the way to become a deputy general manager. Then I took the chance to go to Singapore and run our Asia Pacific operations for 3 years. Came back in Europe. I've been the vice president of Central Eastern Europe, and an amazing, diversity of countries and regions. And then moved to corporate in Seattle, where I was running the mid-market and partner ecosystem organization for 6 years. Came back as a CEO of Microsoft in France, then of Microsoft in Western Europe. And then, in 2020, moved back to Seattle to run the business application business globally before I left a few months ago.
And nowadays?
And now, it's just spending this luxury time. I felt, after 30 years, that was the right, let's say, clean cut off to start to reflect about what comes next. And, the high-tech industry I've been in, for all my life, because before Microsoft, I was working also at Texas Instruments, has been, the root of everything, is happening. And so the innovation is so exciting these days, especially with the evolution and the emergence of the artificial intelligence and generative AIs, and what comes next. So I felt that's the right time to stop, pause, reflect on my career, what I learned. Sometimes you never realize how much you learn, before you leave. And now exploring, in fact, multiple ways. And I have to say, it's exciting. It's exciting to see the number of opportunities ahead. And now the biggest difficulty is going to be to choose the right one.
But you have been very successful in your career. But looking back, what do you think has been critical in your path to power?
Wow, that's a big question. Obviously there are a few things, especially as part of my current, let's say, thought process in terms of how things come together, and happens, right? And I think the starting point I always think is start with knowing yourself. I think, I had a kind of good understanding of, let's say, what I'm aspiring to, but then I realized that, if you keep it for you only, nobody will know. So not being afraid to and never assume that people know what you want or what you aspire to is important. I felt that, talking to my management, that, hey, you know what, I would like to do it, and I'm super committed to my job for the next couple of years, but I'm aspiring to take this type of position, or I'm aspiring to learn that type of field, or I'm aspiring to even go in another place, in another country, or that's something that I felt important. Knowing yourself what you are capable of, or you are inspired by, or excited by, and at the same time make sure that people who are going to be part of the decision-making process are aware of what you want, so that at least they can give you feedback. They can tell you, hey, you know what, Vahe, that's too early, or I think you are missing that type of skill, or and then at least you can work on it and you can fill the gap, moving forward. I think that was an important part of the learning. I think in the as you said, the path to power, as there's something also which is also associated to thinking that sometimes the upward line is not the fastest route to your ambition. I remember in the very early stage, I was trying to take some lateral moves, and having taken these lateral moves, I was becoming, in fact, the obvious candidate for some bigger roles, as opposed to declining some roles because they were not, let's say, giving me a higher position, straightforward. So that's something that paid quite well, to me, compared to some other friends and colleagues that, took different paths at that time. I think the building a brand as well, is important. It's not that, you have to walk the talk, and you can't, when I was saying, be yourself, don't try to be someone else. Sometimes you can be inspired by great leaders, great managers, and you try to talk like them, but you are not them, right? And so it's just, we need to be careful on that one. And I think that that was one piece. Being curious. I've been always curious, connecting, asking for questions, and not being also ashamed, being, having some gaps. Sometimes when you don't know, you don't know. And it's not a weakness to ask for help. That's something I realized, for depending, which education that you have, the background that you have, some people will try to say, what, it's not worth asking a question or ask for help because people are going to think I'm weak. And it's not the case. It's just the opposite. It shows that you are engaged. It shows that you want to contribute and participate. I think mobility also was an important, part at some point in these, global corporations. You need to know whether you are mobile or you're not mobile. And I know today with the, the post-pandemic, people work more from home and the technology helps to the collaboration across boundaries, and that's great. But at the same time, I know that having the ability and the chance to live and experience different culture give you different type of reflex in the future in terms of leadership of teams, of various different teams. And so I know that for me, that was very useful at some point of my career after maybe 10, 12 years to say, well, am I mobile or I'm happy to travel, but I'm not mobile? And having that clear answer to that question, it's only you and your family. And it's good to anticipate that because I think most of the time, my takeaway is that, let's say, people who have been mobile have had, much faster career accelerators than the one who have not. And so that's something that, has paid off, to me. And I think that, and sometimes it's not the right time and you should be able to say no. And it's there's no obligation to say no. So I think to me, also, the notion of integrity, the notion of, let's say, doing the right things, is part of building the brand. To me, I was able to deliver success, to be recognized, as someone who walks the talk, who brings others together. And so that would be my quick answer, Petya.
And I remember from our preliminary conversation, you mentioned that there are three things that would be very important. And that is first, what you say, second, what you achieve, and third, how do you behave?
Yeah. I think that piece is important to me because it's almost, I've always been fascinated about, let's say, observing people who have a good reputation and some people have a bad reputation. And whatever they do, in fact, that is quite sticky. And the reason why I was mentioning this three component, Petya, was because I always observe that people who have a good reputation or a bad reputation, but a good reputation, do always, let's say, two of these three things well. And for example, if you think about, let's say, you can be a great charismatic person, you talk well, and you you always deliver, but you have a very bad behavior and people know about it, your reputation will be, oh, walk away from that person. So if you don't manage, let's say, these three components, you see that one is going to affect, in fact, the two others and affect, your own self. At the same time, if you behave very well and you deliver, always, or you are a charismatic leader and you behave very badly, but you never deliver, people will say, well, he's just a talker, right? He talk, but so it's important to always reflect about this walk to talk, which is aligning these three dimensions all the time, and in your personal life as well, because now with the social network, everybody knows everyone, and and you want to be true to yourself, and that's why the starting point is really know yourself. In all my mentoring and coaching, exercise I've done, I've seen so many people lying to themselves, and that's why the starting point is know yourself. Surround yourself by people who you trust, and who can give you the genuine feedback, the truth feedback. Sometimes it's hard to hear, but that's what build yourself in the future. In the context of, let's say, taking some risk, and you don't know until you try, right? But the most important thing is that drive your own path. Don't let anyone else drive your own destiny. That's the key point, across all the career. People might have opinions and so on, but be on control of what you do, and don't let anyone, tell you you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. And Vahe, when you become a leader of leaders, when you reach a position of seniority, it would perhaps take a different set of qualities to be successful in that position and to retain that position.
Yeah, you're right. It's different. I think everything that you have done before is the foundation. Everything I said earlier on, which is somehow leading by exemplarity, is associated to what I said. Your reputation precedes you. Leading by exemplarity, people know that you are a great leader. They want to follow you. They want to be part of you. And the reason is because you have high level of compliance, high level of integrity. You bring everyone along. You treat everyone the same. You care. You listen. And then you have an inspiring vision. It's almost like you set the tone for what could be next. You help people to believe in what could be impossible on the paper, but you help everyone make it and believe it's possible. So you create this followership, and then I think staying engaged with the network, the top management, regularly communicate on where you are, the progress. Be agile, be nimble, because things will change, especially in our high-tech environments. There's always a disruption coming from left to right. Everything is driven by innovation. And so you need to really keep the pace, explain the whys, why we're on track, why we're not on track, and set expectation. And I think, and I would say listen very much, because listen to any signals, good and bad. The weak signals, you don't want them to become storms in the future. And so, there's always a good, let's say, component to it. And then embrace the growth mindset. That's something that, we have been blessed, with Satya Nadella at Microsoft, and all the work that the team have done around the growth mindset. But it's not the word, it's just a culture. It's a component of, let's say, what the leader does, and inspire respect, not only in the company, but outside with the stakeholders as well. I think, and then, of course, as a senior leader, what you do, you never need to think 1 second that you are the smartest person in the room. You have to put your ego aside, surround yourself by the best team, the best individuals, sometimes with very different type of personality. If you talk about, let's say, diversity, you need to embrace it fully, demonstrate it, show it that you believe in it, and you understand why it's important from a pure performance and success of the organization. So I would say that that's setting the expectation, having your own non-negotiables that people know perfectly well, and course correcting as you go, and demonstrating that, let's say, you are listening. I think, to me, has always been one of the key components, keeping the stakeholders aligned with you, so there's no degree of separation between what they think and what you think, and then, and bring everyone along. I think it's and having always an inspiring, direction and vision, which I think people want. I mean, it's you, and often I mention, bringing a sense of humor as well. Sometimes you face intensity. It's tough, and humor is a great tool to say, hey, look, let's breathe. Let's face the reality. There are things that we control, things that we don't control. Let's not spend time and waste time on things we don't control. And look, in the end, we are going to find a solution. We don't know yet, but we're going to find a solution. I think that's more the inspiring piece that is important, and that's what people need. And it's during the tough time that you always recognize your friends. And so that's true in life. That's true in the business. And having someone who is approachable as a leader, that there's no degree of separation between the base of the organization and the top. That's what you want to avoid. You want to create this sense of common commitment and full alignment, and happiness going to work. It just wherever you are, if you work from home, or it's the enjoyment to spend some time with your colleagues and fixing and solving some tough problems for customers or for the society at large. I think that's what create high energy and the willingness to go beyond. And I think that's the way I would summarize it. Yeah.
Thank you, Vahe. And you often mention a phrase, "Life is too short." So how do you make most of it? How do you maintain your work-life balance?
Work-life balance. I think it's a topic that has been studied, in many places, right? In academia, in businesses. I think in the end, or at the beginning of everything, I would say, work-life balance is very personal, right? I mean, it's I'm sure we can have a debate together. We can have a different variance of life, balance. I think it's first of all, is more life balance than a work-life balance. It just it's life first, and work is a component of life. To me, it worked for me because I felt that at some point of my career, having this opportunity to coach and mentor so many people across the world, people were thinking always in two dimensions, as family and work, or work or family. And every time they were going a bit too far on that line, on one side or the other, they were creating some frustration, or let's say a stress test. And I felt that the reality is that the work-life balance to me is more an equilateral triangle, ideally, right? Where you have 3 dimensions as opposed to 2 dimensions. You have the work, the family, and the self. And most of the time people forget about the self because they think it's almost a selfish way of thinking about life balance. And I think it's just the opposite. If you forget about the self, I think you start to affect both work and life and family to some degree. And that I always try to find out, let's say, when you have tensions, the best way to almost expose your negative energy is to do something that you like to. And whether it's sport or music or reading or painting, wherever, take the one that you're traveling, whatever you want. And sometimes that's something that you don't share with your partner, if you are, in a couple. So, and I think it's very important for me, for example, I always have, time during the weekend, and everybody knows in the family that I'm going to be off, for rowing, or cooking is a great exercise to me all, because you please the others, and you use creativity to do things for others. But I like to do this. I like to do sport. I like to do boating. And sometimes these are things that you can share with the others. But the energy that I'm getting because of that, then I can share that positive energy both at work and in the family. And so that's the thing. So is it an equilateral triangle? I don't think it is, but I'm fine with that, and maybe your triangle will be different than mine. That's okay, but I think it has always helped people to reflect about, and people realize that sometimes their self is tiny in that equation, and I think it's good to reflect on.
I climb.
You climb, perfect. Exactly, that's a great one.
Thank you very much, Vahe, for this very interesting conversation. Thank you on my behalf. and on behalf of my classmates at the Stanford Lead. Have a
Thank you,
great
Vahe.
day.
You too.